Hey there, I am Jade Green. Today I am speaking to you from the amazing Aspen, Colorado. I'm a global citizen who gets to roam the world, usually speaking, but how to grow your business sustainably by fixing your people problems. You might be able to tell by the accent, I am Australian by default, by background,
Birth even?
by birth. Well, by birth, yeah. And I really absolutely love talking to people like Dom to help organizations like you be able to fix your people problems, have less stress, and just love going back to work. Because often we find the people that we help, Dom, are already pulling their hair out by the time they come into our field, right?
That's absolutely right. So, what's your background? Maybe we could tell people what you've spent most of your life doing. They get to hate you early then.
Excellent. Yeah. I usually take the stage and say, Hi, my name's Jade Green, and I'm a reformed recruiter. Don't throw tomatoes at me. So, broadly, I would say the last oh, two and a bit decades has been around helping companies attract world class talent. What that looked like was 13 years in headhunting and recruitment, specifically in sales and executive. And when that wasn't stressful enough, I recruited recruiters for recruiters. So I got to go really neck deep in what it takes to find the right people at the right times for organizations. I've worked with everyone from people who sold door hardware handles to coffin
Yeah.
makers only, because that was their niche, to Google, and from Striker Spinal to toys. So you name it, we've been across it. I do have a bit of a sweet spot in the trades as well. A lot to do with building and construction, anything to do in that sort of vertical. And then I went into when I decided to hang up the pinstripe suit and trade it in for a swimsuit. I was running a business accelerator out of Bali for Roger James Hamilton, which really took me into doing the end to end consulting, working with organizations all over the globe. I told you I had a migraine today, right? The speech thing. But working with organizations all over the globe about how do they either enter new markets geographically or new markets with their product stack, and then continue to evolve into diving deeper on specifically organizations that have work, like they can see the cash, they've got the runway, but they don't have the right people in the right seats doing the right things to be able to realize the cash.
Yeah. How come you ended up in construction?
When I was an itty bitty little girl, we lived in a trailer park, and then my dad is entrepreneurial and he decided to start building trailers. So we had a business doing transportable homes. So I could pierce a ear with a nail gun by the time I was 9.
Uh huh.
I used to love sitting there with like the little samples and getting on dad's drawing board. And I thought at some stage I'd go in to that area. But through my recruitment career, I did a lot of work with companies that do building products. And so everything that's sold into the space, even the salespeople in the commercial or design area. And then there's this one time I had an ex husband, and he was one of the best recruiters in Australia for construction.
Aha. I see. I see. And so, is that how you ended up recruiting a load of salespeople on the back of sales into construction?
No. So how I ended up recruiting salespeople was before that I had a modeling and promotional agency and a dressmaking business, and so
Right.
I used to have all of the brolly girls and the liquor sampling ones, and the girls that were at the racetrack and everything like that. And so a lot of that was sales. And one of my clients was Diageo. So they do Bundy, Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, like a lot of the big brands in liquor, and they asked me if I'd help out and be one of their sales reps. Did that for a bit. Decided I needed to move from the small town of Darwin where I was, moved to Sydney. Was like, need to go to a recruiter to I need a job here, and they were like, you'd make a good recruiter. So then I fell in to recruitment.
Aha. I see. I see. And so, what you were saying earlier? You often speak on stage, with sort of the title "How to Win the War on Talent."
Yes.
What? What is it? Is there a war for talent?
There is always a war for A plus players, always. Being that I've been in the game for over 2 decades, I've been through a few financial crises, like crashes and everything. And even in that time, the ones that the organizations that can stand it and can then go in and start picking up people, they're still hiring, right? And there's always, like, if you want to survive even in tough times, you want the best of the best. So, and the best of the best have jobs and are usually getting looked after okay because no one wants to lose them.
Yeah. And so how do you, a client comes to you and says, I need some people. What are they getting wrong? What do you get right for them? What are some of the things that you need to do to
Yeah.
attract people? Because I think the clients that I would work with, they're building sales teams. Often they're hiring sellers, they're hiring a head of sales for the first time, they're hiring an executive for the first time from outside their company. They're hiring a COO, maybe even
Mhm.
chief people officer. So that sort of sales and executives are the thing that really challenge clients that I work with.
Yeah. And often because it's a different profile to them and it's the thing they hate, so they just want to get it off their plate.
Well, well, particularly if they're a tech founder. And so they've always felt in their career that the salespeople got overpaid for very little talent.
Yeah.
And so that, they're not salespeople themselves. And I think somehow that sets them up, the mindset and the not being sellers makes it really hard. I've had clients who have working with a client at the moment who've hired 3 sales directors in 5 years. So they've obviously got really good at it,
Yeah.
getting it wrong at least.
Excellent at getting it wrong. I'll give you an example. I recently joined a board of a tech startup,
Uh-huh.
going for second round of funding, and they were like, "Oh, we need to hire a CEO. We've got like 300 grand that we think we could pay for the salary. We've allocated like 45,000 to pay an executive recruiter." I'm like, pump the brakes, fellas. Like, what's the real problem that you guys have right now? What do you need to achieve? And they're like, well, we need to get the investors, we need more users on the platform, we need to get some corporate clients. I'm like, okay, everything you've just told me then is you're looking for a salesperson and some sales strategy. Why are we hiring a CEO? Oh, well, we need to be doing other things. I'm like, okay, tell me the job to be done. Well, um, I'm like, what? Like, tell me the job to be done. So, and this is the biggest problem I see with a lot of people hiring like their first ops. They haven't sat down and really thought about what is the job to be done. Someone tells them, oh, you need a CEO, oh, you need a sales director, oh, you need this. Or they think that's what it is because they don't want to do that, what they think would live in that job description anymore, and they haven't sat down and actually thought about it. So I love to get people not to use job descriptions because usually they go on the internet and they're like, CEO, tech startup, sales director for this, like for SaaS. And they rip off a job description and they go, oh, that'll do. And then they put that up and have that masquerade as a job advertisement when really it's just a job list of demands that doesn't even suit the demands that they need. And they hire the person that they kind of get along with the most, which is usually the most wrong person because it's more like them. And now we've got
Yeah.
a complete. So I tell everyone, let's pump the brakes. Let's write a task list of everything that you need done right now, like everything that's pushing the organization forward. So if they're using a one-page strategic plan or whatever, like what are the goals that we have for the next 12 months, 30, like 12 months, 36 months and beyond? And what seats do we actually need filled right now? And what are the tasks that they need to do to push that forward? I then will profile it. I use a profiling system called Talent Dynamics, and I
Uh-huh.
can use that to profile the tasks and then group them up and go, okay, this is the type of genius you need. So hypothetically, if you've got a tech founder, they're usually over on a side of the square, which I call it's the steel, detail orientated, the programmers, like the introverted thinkers. And we might profile and go, we really need an extroverted thinker, someone who's great at communicating, connecting with the people, leading the troops, right? So if I know that, I can break it out and then I can actually create a role specifically designing what they're going to do on a day-to-day basis and then write an advertisement that actually speaks to that type of person. So we're getting into we're using marketing in our attraction strategy to make sure that we are filtering and getting the right people applying. And then we can interview around that scope and the personality traits that are required to be able to be successful in that. And often it's just completely opposite to what they think they needed to hire in the first place.
And often there's a group of people who are doing the hiring. And I know in the past I've got, 3 people who are hiring a new executive, the 3 people who are already there now hiring a 4th person. And you get them on a call and you say, okay, like a year from now, we hire this person a year from now, what have we measured? What are we measuring so that we look back and they've been successful? And they've all got 3 or 4 different things in their head and they've never talked about it. They've all said, as you say, oh, we need a CEO or we need a COO or head of sales. But they've never said, well, how do we measure success? And they haven't agreed on that. So they would all interview somebody with a completely different lens. And then say, and what would it need to look like? Because, with a salesperson in particular, if you say, look, you need to do £1 million of GP and build a £4 million sales pipeline, well, that's a specific person who knows that job ad, is for them or not. And then when you interview it, it's like, show me you've done this before.
Yeah. And really getting specific also in terms of what market they're going into. Like someone told me the other day they needed a sales director in the UK selling linen. And I'm like, okay, what channel? And they're like, oh, it'll be like the hospitality chains, like so the big hotels and retail, and there'll be some e-commerce, and I'm like,
this is 3 jobs.
I'm like, okay, and we want them to have contacts. I'm like, they don't have contacts all across that. Maybe you want a chief revenue officer that can set the strategy and give the right direction to marketing, give the right direction to the sales force, and to have the different channel things. But you're just trying to dump everything on one person and think you can hire yourself out of a hole. You haven't. I'm like, and what does success look like in each of those channels? Have you even got relationships? And they're like, oh, I thought they'd just figure that out.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why people aren't successful when they go to market. Because there's just some basic thinking that you could do up front.
Yeah.
And how good is the recruitment industry at helping people do this thinking?
Not great. They're great. Like you give them a brief, they'll go fill that brief because that's their job. And I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush, but recruitment is sales. You are you're banging phones. You're trying to sell opportunities to candidates. You're trying to sell candidates to clients. All you're doing is taking 2 things, like a resume that looks like this, that's usually full of a job description that has nothing to do with the job, and playing Snap. And it's a numbers game. You're banging. And so recruiters don't get hired for their consulting skills and their culture consulting skills and being able to figure out that's not what they get paid for. They get paid for putting a bum in a seat to a job description they've been given. So they're the wrong people to even lean on for that. And they're always going to have their own agenda. They're sitting there. And I say this because I used to recruit recruiters for recruiters, right? So they're sitting there just listening and they're thinking through their database of who they've got that they can kind of make fit your job. It's not in their best interest because they don't get paid that way to spend the time to elicit all these things. They might be able to drag a job description out of you, but they're not business consultants that understand what your real challenges are. They're going to hear you say, I need a salesperson. Like, okay, tell me what you need. Not tell me what your goals are. Tell me what your 1-year goal is, your 2-year goal is, and where you're going in 5 years. And let me make sure that you're actually got the right structure and you're putting the right people in the right seats for the goals that you have to achieve.
Yeah.
So, but they can be amazing if you come to them with the right brief and you actually know your and you know what you do need, and you've got a great employer brand behind it, then they can be fantastic. But they can only be as good as you are.
And Do recruiters in general, are they any good at interviewing?
It depends. So I would say with sales recruiters, like they are like they have to be good. You have to be able to see that through the because as long as you've got a guarantee in there, you need to make sure the person works out. But you want to give, and if you're working contingently, meaning that you're fighting with other recruiters, you need to make sure that your people are quality to get in there. So if someone makes it past a certain stage, like in their recruitment career, they're usually like, I've trained some phenomenal recruiters where they can, look at a resume and within 5 seconds flat tell you if they're worth interviewing for a role. And the spidey senses start to go off and they're like, oh, I'm going to go check their LinkedIn. Something doesn't feel quite right there. So you can get some amazing interviewers. And if they really are worth their salt and they make money and they've been in the industry for a while, they will have honed their craft.
Okay. What else have you got on your checklist for help people win the war of talent? So do your specifications, set your goals, 1 year, 3 year, work out what success looks like so you know what you're after. So you
Yeah.
can write a job ad and interview to that. What else do people get wrong?
They think that everyone should be grateful to get an interview with them, or like my business is so much better than everybody else's business. So, like, they should be lucky. And then they grill the out of people and they don't remember that A players have plenty of options, right? You need to sell your opportunity first and have them begging to work for you. And then you can start to grill them, right? If your advertisements and that have done the right job, and depending on how you've got the talent in the door, then you should have already narrowed down whether they're relatively right, and you should be selling them on the opportunity. The thing we forget is candidates pay us with the most precious thing they have in their entire life, their time, something that they cannot get back. And it's time for organizations to have a bit more gratitude for the people that help them make money and push their things forward. We need to think about why the hell, like why the hell should anyone work for you? Like if someone is actively or they've made a decision that they're going to change jobs and they're an A player, A, you've got to convince them to leave their current job. And B, they've had 5 recruiters tapping them on the shoulder, 3 competitors that have been begging them to come work for them for ages. If they're worth their salt, they could probably start their own thing if they wanted to or join somebody else. So, how arrogant are you to sit there and just grill them on what they've done in their past without even convincing them why they should work for you or thinking that through? And then people lose the talent in the process because they're just drilling people and firing things at them and they're not nurturing. So, really, you need to look at your employee journey exactly the same way as you look at it as a customer journey. How do you get them to know about you? How do you get them excited about you? What's in it for them? Is there a match in terms of what you're offering and what they need? And then how do you nurture and how do you sell them and convince them? Because once they're sold on you and they buy in, they're going to go to war for you. But if you give them a beige, blase, like these vultures are circling the minute someone's gets a word out that they're looking and they'll.
The reason I hate the war on talent is because whenever I hear anyone say anything about the war on talent, it's all the winners never mention the war on talent. The people who can go out and recruit, who've got a great employee brand, who understand what they're doing, they never say, I'm winning the war on talent. The people who mention the war on talent are the people who say, I'm losing the war on talent. I can't, I advertise, but I don't get any quality candidates.
Yeah.
And
Advertise.
yeah, well, and then, but also when anybody says that to me, I say, let's have a quick search and see what your job ad looks like. And it's just incredibly dull. And then we say, oh, have you got a careers page on your website? No. Okay, let's search for your company name and click on images on Google. Are there any pictures of your people enjoying themselves? Oh, no, there are no pictures of anybody enjoying themselves. Oh, let's have a look at Glassdoor. And people, they haven't done any marketing. They haven't thought about what would happen if we ran an ad and somebody searched for our company name. let's have a look at the CEO's LinkedIn profile. Oh, it looks really sad. They haven't posted anything ever. Or they've got a blog on their website and it hasn't been updated since 2022. It's just things like that. People go, why would I work here? This place just looks sad and neglected.
And
That's
they
why
go,
you're
how
losing
you
the
do
war
one
on
thing is how
talent.
you do everything.
Totally. Totally. What is there anything when you think about recruiting executives that are different when you're doing headhunting for executives? Is there some different things? Because that's often a challenge that clients have. How do I go and find a new executive to join the team?
So I'd say there's nothing different to what you just said there. The first thing you want to do is get your house in order. So this board that I'm talking to, that I'm working with, yesterday I was like, okay, we're not ready to be attractive either to investors or to executive talent because profiles are all over the shop. There's no social proof and validation about who the founders are. You haven't thought about what's really on offer. Like you need to get your house in order. I'm like, the purpose of the business is for good, and that's great. But where is our actual purpose, mission, obsession, virtues? Where does what is it that makes someone want to join? Like you really need to go back and get that stuff in order before you go to market. Otherwise, you'll burn your leads. And your best talent comes through recommendations and referrals, right? And so if you are an executive and someone's like, oh, actually, you'd be really great. I know this organization that's hiring a COO or a CEO or a sales director or a chief of staff. Like, I reckon you'd get on great with those guys. Okay, cool. First thing they say is, can you send me something? Or where can I find out more about them? And if it's all of those terrible things that you said before, like the snooze fest on all of the things and they don't have their ducks in a row, that top executive is going to go, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Not interested. Or too hard basket. Or, yeah. So you want to work on what is I'd say the personal brand of the visible leader that you're putting forward. How do you make sure that they've got their assets in line? And then what are you actually going to do through the process to make them come along on the journey with you?
Can you push? Can you pull people through the process too fast? Can we go from interest to offer in a week?
You can, depending on how well you've got all your stuff in a row, and also depending on where the talent's at, right? So if they're just been fired, maybe not the right time, depending. But why are they available so quickly? Well,
Oh,
you
right.
said
Yeah, they
offer, a
might,
little
they
bit
might,
offer,
they,
not
they
start.
might not be, they might not be able to start for 3 to 6
Yeah.
months. But I'm just thinking,
But if you've got all of your process and your ducks in a row, yes, you can get through that quickly. So what that means is being able to clearly articulate the job to be done, being able to have anyone that's going to be involved in the interview process follow a structure. So I used to teach, you've read E-Myth, right?
yeah,
So how to E-Myth the the recruitment process so that everyone along the process is on the same page and it's not then subjective.
what's the Jade Green ideal recruitment process? How many steps? And give us more about this. This would be great.
So again, this would depend on the role, on how many steps, but
Okay.
basic rule of thumb. Give me an example of which one title to use.
Head of sales.
Okay, so head of sales, um, my process would be, let's say that they've been recommended to the hiring person.
Hmm.
And so what I would want to do is firstly, I compare resume to LinkedIn profiles. I try to find any data to see if there's anything that's a mismatch, anything I want to ask the questions around. I would do a phone screen first. And in that, I'll be more talking to them about what are they looking for? What's going to excite them about in their next role? What's the things that was missing from their past role and their frustrations so that I can find out if there's an alignment. But also, I'm pre selling them, right? So I'm starting to
Hmm.
seed why they should be giving us any more time because we want them to go all in on the interview process as well. So
Hmm.
always be selling your opportunity. So be making sure I could be really clear and articulate in that first call of job to be done and what's on offer with us. I would then move to ideally everything would be face to face. If it's not face to face, it would be on video call. You want to be
Hmm.
able to get up nice and close, eyes to eyes, be able to read the nonverbal communication, and don't ask standard questions about getting them to regurgitate what's on their resume, right? They know what's on their resume. They can repeat what's on their resume. You can see their resume. So I use these things. I think, did I give you a deck of these eye openers?
You said you were printing some more, and they were
Okay,
going
I
to be
have more.
available.
So
Ah,
I'll get you
fantastic.
some. So I go through, let's do a little quick play. Pick a color.
Orange.
Let's go from here. Tell me when.
Now.
What distracts you the most? So I ask questions like this because no one is expecting that in an interview process. We start to crack open who the real human is. You lower their guard and get them dropped in, and we can start pulling threads. And we're like, okay, well, what about at work? What about when you're, if you're a sales director, you've got your whole sales team running amok, blah, blah, blah. Where do you get distracted? What rabbit holes do you go down? So you can, you want to start asking questions that tell you more about how their brain operates first. So that's what I would use the first interview for. Really breaking open, just understanding how their thinking is, what their core values are, selling them on us before taking them to a next round. And then I tee that up to be let's talk more about the skill set side of things and drilling into job to be done, experience doing something similar. What would you do in this situation? So that would be second round. And then depending on how we're feeling and who's been involved in that process, we can look to go to, I missed a step. In between that, if I'm taking them from first face-to-face to second, I would profile them in between that. So I want to be making sure that how I profile the jobs in the tasks to be done in the job, then I would be trying to make sure that I've got at least an 80% match on their natural genius, their natural inclination, because that's going to prevent burnout and it's going to make them do better work because they can hit flow state. If that's a match, we go to the next round. And then I'll be looking at, okay, asking questions about like, what's going to make you like choose the role? Like, obviously, I always say, obviously, you've got other things on the table so that you don't, like, what else are you looking at? No, nothing. Obviously, you've got other things. What appeals to them? What haven't we done to tell you about our opportunity to make you excited? And you start getting them to sell themselves back to you as well. And then thinking about when you deliver your offer, how do you absolutely wow the pants off them? Don't send them an email with a letter of offer. Like really thinking about like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? You want to make this person so excited that they're running out there telling their friends about the opportunity because great people know more great people. It helps build your brand. But if you want to keep that, you want to build that excitement level and build that you're already on our team momentum before they start because they're going to hit the ground running then. And then I could go through nurture sequences, delivery of the offer, what you need to do between offer and start date so that they definitely turn up. Yeah.
What do you need to do between offer and start date so they definitely turn up?
Nurture them, make them feel excited, make them feel like you're great, like you can't wait to have them on board. When they feel seen, when they feel wanted, they're going to be less likely to accept another offer that someone's banging on their door, but also do extra homework. Like, what can you give them to get them along the journey? Like, you want to send them swag. If you wear uniforms, you don't want your new starter to turn up on the first day not wearing the uniform because it makes them feel like an outsider. It makes them feel like the newbie, right? Help them feel like they're already on the team before they get there. So I love to send out, uniforms or swag or even like coffee cups with their name on it. Like, what is it that you can do to already make them feel comfortable? What videos can you send them? I always get my clients to do if it's turned up to the office first time, selfie video. Hey, this is where you're going to come in. This is where we park as you come through. This is the front door. You're going to say hi to Mary as you come past. Say, hi, Mary. Introduce to a few people. Anything to lower the anxiety levels of going into a new place and make them already feel like they're a part of the team.
Very good.
Go watch it's Dan, I can't remember his last name, on YouTube. It's by the guys who wrote Moments, and they talk about the John Deere first day experience.
Chip.
Chip and
His
I think
brother.
it's Chip and Dan. It's a father and son.
Oh, father and son. Yeah. What's it called? Moments.
Moments is the book, but
Right.
I just always just on YouTube search John Day
John
First
Deere.
Day Experience. Yeah,
John Deere. Okay.
yep.
Fab.
And
People will
the
go look
watching
that.
the
We'll put a
son
note in
one's
the
a
show
little
notes.
bit more engaging than watching the dad one. There's two will come up.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And you said you didn't say mission, vision, values. What did you just say?
I use purpose,
Yeah.
mission,
Yeah.
obsession, and virtues.
Okay. Tell me about obsession and virtues.
So, obsession is whether you use big rocks, milestones, OKRs, success markers, whatever. Your your obsession should be short, bite-sized, super measurable things that help you actually achieve your purpose and your mission. So, it would be so a couple of my clients, one of their core obsessions is we're obsessed with making X lists. So we're obsessed with making the top 10 best places to work in construction by December 31st, 2026.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like that. Yeah.
One of my other clients was we're obsessed with feeding 500,000 families in Southeast Queensland by December 2024.
Okay.
And so it's a measure something that is short, like I always say, ideally 1 to 3 years, that's really broken down into that's measurable. You can tick it, it's done or not done. Right. And that because what gets measured gets done, but it also builds momentum. But you want it to be something that the team members, something that means something to them, not to you. Like, we want to increase our profit and achieve, like, yeah,
We
I
want
want
to
to,
be a billion dollar company. We want to
yeah,
IPO.
yeah, I want
The
we're
employees roll
obsessed
their
with
eyes.
we're obsessed with getting a $1 billion valuation. Like, that doesn't really enroll the team. You want to have it more of an impact or more about something that's in it for them, something that really they can get excited about. You
Uh
can
huh.
have an internal one. So I often have I call my leadership teams pit crews.
Okay.
And so you can have a HQ pit crew um, financial metric that, all the people that are bought into that buy into. But that's not what we'd use outwardly facing to the teams.
Then you had obsessions and then virtues. What are virtues?
So I use virtues because
Rather
um,
than values.
rather than values for a couple of reasons. So, firstly, I believe that you can't tell another human what their values are because values are beliefs. And so, who are you to go and tell somebody else what they should value? But also, you end up often with a conflict because if someone has really strong belief systems that have come from religion or the way they've been brought up or whatever, and they're like, sometimes they can be at odds with each other and there's conflicting values. But also, if people have worked in other organizations where the values have just been bullshit words on a wall made up by marketing, they have a
Hmm.
belief that everyone just has them for marketing and they're crap, right? So if you can use a different word, then you are able to break people's constructs and belief systems, or like they can't put that in a box anymore. And you can then clean slate. And a virtue by virtue is something you strive towards, where a value is something that you believe. It doesn't have so much action and behavior behind it. Whereas a virtue, when you're like, these are our virtues, and we all agree, and we decide when we come on board, your mission when you choose to accept it, is to strive towards this common set of virtues, these morals that we have. And this is what it means to not be in alignment with it. This is what it means to be bare ass minimum in alignment. And this is what it means to really be a champion of it and lead others and model what that behavior is. So you can set the habits, behaviors, routines, behaviors behind how to live that. And it's just that, again, it gives you an opportunity to clean slate because people coming in don't have a preconceived idea around it.
In essence, it's the same, different words to avoid the conflict.
Yeah. And I really pull things out. So an example would be um, instead of like everyone has something to do with honesty, integrity, truth.
No, they only have that if they do a survey of the employees.
quality.
They get teamwork, excellence, joy. But that, yes, that if you ask the employees, you'll get those 5 indeed.
Yeah, or a version of, and I'm like, how do you live that? And if you've got a sales director who sandbags deals and your value is honesty and integrity, the minute you sandbag one of those deals, your honesty and integrity is out the door and you've just dissolved everything. Right? So some examples, I like to bring them out into more statements of things that you can live into.
Okay.
Right? So teamwork. So instead of teamwork, team first. We think
Okay.
team first. We play for the logo on the front, not the name on the back of the jersey. We
Okay.
believe that the grass is greenest where you water it. Like, what are you doing to contribute to team first?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then you can pull out what it is and what it isn't, and it gives you a whole new language. You want to think about what invokes more emotion. Like, I had a client who wanted to have quality, and I'm like, okay, let's talk this through. What do you really want? And I was like, how about, and I'd known the team and I'd been coaching them for ages. So I was like, how about on point? How about if we had a virtue of being on point? And it was about like every time you pick up a document, you're like, I'm done with this. Is it on point? Because if it's quality's like, yeah. But if it's on point, everything is spot on. We've really leveled it up. If you're going to go into a meeting, are you going to go in and have a quality meeting? Or what are you going to do to make that meeting completely on point, smashed it, you walk out and it's like, yep, nailed it.
Yeah, because that quality's like, it meets a minimum standard.
Oh, it's beige.
As opposed to, we're really proud of that piece of work.
Yeah.
They're different. They're completely different, aren't they?
Yeah. So, and actually back in when I had my recruitment firm, I had one of our values was pride. You need to be able to look at everything and go, I am proud of the work I've done.
Yeah.
So, and instead of having initiative, how many do you think we say initiative? I have something like step up to the plate, take the first round, step up and use your voice rather than take initiative. So you want to like, what can you do to paint done with all the colors? How can you add a bit more like that? When you use words, like the emotion that comes with the word rather than, and if you look at somebody else's website that's in your industry and you see the same word on there, put it in the bin. I did this yesterday.
Yes.
I facilitated for 10 hours yesterday on purpose, mission, obsession, and virtues. And like we had the ones, I'm like trying to be kind. I know we've been described as a similar level of coach, right? And I'm like, how do I say this kindly with it? And at one stage I did go, sorry, I fell asleep. And they're like, I'm like, no, sorry, what did you say? I was like, right, bring up the 3 competitors' websites and read me theirs. And they were all like, you could just almost identical. And it's just so blah. And then I'm so proud of what we've come up with and how people can live into it. It's like, let's have a bit more something about it.
And so that, even it's funny because my best example where the only thing we changed was the language around the values and the mission and the purpose was a multi-academy trust we worked with in Birmingham called Excelsior Mat. And they couldn't pay the teachers any more money. They couldn't fire anybody. So the only thing they could do was tell a story and engage the workforce and tell the same story externally. Mm-hmm. And so when they put they set themselves a BHAG to be world famous for innovation in education. And then they came up with a set of values and behaviors and they put that into their job ads. And they went from having 30 poor quality CVs to having 300 amazing CVs.
Yeah.
Because it then appealed to the right people. And the last time I spoke to the CEO, she said that even had 95 job applicants for the job of receptionist at one of the schools.
Isn't that great?
And so, I don't think you can underestimate the impact of getting that right, putting it on the website, building that into your recruitment process. I think
But more
it's
importantly, building it into your day-to-day, how
oh,
you live.
totally. It's not just a marketing thing, but it's just, it has to be real. Otherwise people turn up and then they go, hang on, I
Yeah,
was
this
sold a
is a
bill
load
of
of
that.
bullshit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. And then they'll leave. But
yeah.
what books do you recommend? Maybe it's not about recruitment, maybe it's not about the work that we do, but what have you been reading or have read that made a
Yeah.
difference to you?
So the one that I've got all of my clients reading at the moment is Never Lose an Employee Again. I'm really mad that
Okay.
I didn't write it because someone's like, "Oh, you've clearly read this book because you like teach everything in it." I'm like, "Oh man." So that's brilliant. He also has Never Lose a Customer Again, and one of the marketing directors that I coach, he just said to me yesterday, he's like, "Best book ever." He said it just blew his mind. And I
Okay.
said,
Never lose
"Well,
a customer and never lose an employee. Okay, that's
yeah."
two. Yeah.
Um, so that Culture is Everything by Tristan White.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Had him on the podcast yonks ago.
Oh, really?
Physio, Australian physio. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Physio
Yeah.
Co. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want to learn about purpose, like doing purpose statements, and how you put your values into action, that's a brilliant book for that. And then Ben Horowitz, What You Do Is Who You Are. If you tell me you've had
Yeah.
Ben
That
Horowitz on your
that the way
podcast,
you
though.
do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And that just really about like how you need to step up, like and model and think about, like, what I extracted from that book is culture is caught, not taught. So you need to really never make your virtues, never make your purpose, mission, obsession, and your virtues something that the leaders of the business aren't going to model every single day. Because if you have words on your wall that you say are your values, but you don't operate in accordance and you don't model that behavior, they're just words on a wall. So make something that you can actually commit to and live and be the example of.
Culture is caught, not taught. Love that.
Yeah.
I've written that down. I'm going to repeat that.
Repeat it, repeat it,
Attributed to
repeat it.
you.
Because and like so on your first day, if when you have someone start on their first day, if you just put them at a desk with a computer that's not plugged in and a binder full of like policies and procedures and how to log into the portal to put your annual leave in, blah, blah, ugh, right? And you put them with the like lowest performer who's usually like you've given them to them because they're not doing anything. They're going to instantly your A player is going to start growing down. What happens is we don't rise to the level of the words, we sink to the behavior of the lowest common denominator because what you permit, you promote. So the minute they start spending time with an underperformer, a toxic, like someone who's not aligned with the culture, they're gossipy or they stand around talking at the water cooler, that's the behavior you're telling a new starter is acceptable around here.
Indian outsourcer. What the hell are they called? Can't remember. But great study that was done by somebody on their starters. And the first hour of the first day was the most important thing. And if
Yep.
they had they were able to track the impact over 12 months. 12 months later, if the first hour had been sensational, then they were a higher performer and more engaged a year later. And what they
Yep.
did is they had in that first hour, they got all the new starters together and they got them to talk about when they had been at their best. And
Yep.
just that sort of, talking about when you were at your best with other people who are sharing those stories at a high level, just made that first hour
Yep.
amazing for people.
It's what sets the tone because how you do one thing and how you do everything. So if they walk in, they're like, "Oh, forgot you were starting today." Uh, oh, you actually don't value. I don't actually mean anything. It doesn't like my role mustn't be too important around here.
Indeed. Jade, it's been an absolute pleasure as always to chat with you. Thanks for coming on from Aspen, Colorado.
Thanks so much for having me, Dom. I've really enjoyed the conversation.